ICQ Podcast, episode 358, Grand Field Day. Well, hello everybody and welcome to our 358th episode of the ICQ Amateur Radio Podcast. And as always, we're kindly supported by you, our listeners. So this episode's donor is Michael Casavant, November 1, X-Ray Romeo Romeo, and of course our monthly and subscription donors. In this episode, Martin M1MRB is joined by Chris, Mike 0, Tango Charlie Hotel, Frank, Kilo 4, Foxtrot Mike Hotel, Bill, Whiskey Charlie 3 Bravo, and Caryn Eve Murray, Kilo Delta 2, Golf Uniform Tango, to discuss latest amateur radio news. Myself, Colin, M6BOY, rounds up the news in brief, and this episode's feature, we report from the Grand Field Day. Great to be out and about at a field day again. Well, as I mentioned, it's our very kind donors that keep us advert-free and paying our way here on the internet. So we'd like to thank Michael Casavant, N1XRR. He sent us a 13th birthday wish donation, which he found at www.icqpodcast.com/donate. As I always mention, you can do the same as Michael and our monthly and annual donors by thinking of the value you find in the show, and then you pop along to the donation page and basically turn that into a monetary value and send it our way. And say it helps us pay our way and keeps us, producing the show for you every fortnight. Right, well now we're going to head across to our news roundtable. We're going to join Martin, Chris, Frank, Bill and Caryn as they discuss and generate thoughts about the latest amateur radio news, including HAM's RF interferes with a woman's insulin pump and saving lives using long distances but by accident. As always, guys, hope you enjoy.
Hey, you going to do this thing, the Portable Operations Challenge?
I'm not sure. Don't the big stations always win these things?
No, not this one. They level this all up by how they score the contacts.
Well, I bet the big boys are sweating a bit now.
The little stations have a chance if they're a good operator.
But I'm in. Can we do it anywhere outdoors?
Yeah, that's why it's the Portable Operations Challenge.
Let's just go and show them what the small station can do.
It'll really set the cat amongst the pigeons.
Radio sport on a level playing field, I call that.
Radio sport is about competition, and you've been challenged. See foxmikehotel.com/challenge for details.
Well, hi guys, and welcome to episode 358 of the ICQ podcast, and tonight's news roundtable for that episode. Tonight I'm joined by Mr. Chris Howard, M0TCH. Hi, Chris.
Hi, Martin. Hi, guys. Hope you're all doing okay.
Yeah, good to have you back from your holiday as well. Also, moving over to the other side of the pond, and we're going to stay over there for a while, but we've got Mr. Frank Howell, K4FMH.
Hey, Martin. Hey, everybody. Great to be here again.
Yeah, great to have you, Frank. We've got Bill Barnes, WC3B. Hi, Bill.
Hi, Martin. Good evening, everybody.
And good evening to you, Bill. And tonight, as a special guest, we've got Caryn Eve Murray, KD2GUT. Amateur Radio Newsline is where you'll often find Caryn. And she's come along as a guest in the roundtable this episode. Hi, Caryn.
Hello, great to be here at the roundtable with you guys. Looking forward to the program.
Yeah, it's great to have you on board tonight. Okay, let's start with our first news story. Caryn put this one up, so I'm going to let her go first on this one in a minute. But a woman says that HAM's RF interference with her insulin pump is interfering there. Now, having just gone for an RFI situation in my shack, I thought this was RFI, but I think the guys have done a bit more digging, and it's a bit more than that. So, Caryn, do you want to go first and give us an outline of what the problem is?
Yes, sure thing. As far as we can tell, this is best described as suspected RFI, but as we got more deeply into this story, we realized it is very possibly the RFI that isn't. According to the story itself, there's a woman in a retirement community in Florida who was reporting unmeasured or weirdly measured doses of insulin that were being delivered to her through her insulin pump. And she is saying that the interference with the wireless device controlling those doses is coming from a nearby amateur radio operator. And this made the news in Florida at a local TV station. And of course, when that got on the internet, that came to our attention and we began to pursue the story. And so did probably many, many amateur radio operators out there in the Twitterverse and on the interwebs. Everybody curious about this who Googles for such things. And we looked a little deeper and managed, with the help of another member of the Newsline team, to get in touch with a electrical engineer who's familiar with RFI compliance in devices. And he indicated that while the story says it's a dispute on the surface, it looks like a dispute between a woman saying, "He's messing with my pump," and the ham radio operator saying, "Well, okay, I'll stay off the air until we can figure this out." But it appears now, at least according to this engineer who spoke to us, and he is not involved in the case, he was just advising us for purposes of the story. He says it does not look very likely that going on HF and transmitting would have any impact whatsoever on a wireless device. So that raises question number one. Question number two, and we do not know the answer to this because we're not in Florida reporting the story directly. We need to know a little more about the pump itself. Apparently, some of these devices were defective and were known by the Food and Drug Administration, were known to have a software defect that made them vulnerable to hacking. So this raises enough question marks that we really cannot point the finger and say this is another bad ham radio operator doing bad things to people and their medical devices. So the questions have been raised now, and everybody's watching to see what will happen. It's a great story, by the way, Martin, because this has implications for just about everyone. And certainly there are enough people with medical devices and with the Internet of Things being so widespread now, we need to get some clarity on the issue. And I think this story will really set a precedent.
I think you're right. And yeah, they need to look at this. I'm going to ask Frank, because Frank, you were also doing some quick work on this one. What did you think of it?
Well, I really applaud Caryn's putting it in our hopper and us leading with it, because I think she's absolutely correct that it has the potential for a precedent-setting story. Now, I don't think it's going to go anywhere for several reasons, some of which have to do with radio and some of which have to do with the law. She's asking the Florida Commission on Human Relations, which sort of sounds like somebody that has a once-a-year meeting and talks about how people get along, but it's actually more than that. But regardless of their mission that they began in 1969, it was the Florida Civil Rights Commission basically then. So that's really kind of where they come down on. I'm not sure the state at any level has standing to determine how RF frequencies are used. You know, in the U.S., the federal government takes certain things that under their purview with laws, and the rest of things are left over to states. And it's been pretty clear that the FCC is the one that deals with radio frequency issues. Now, having said that, looking at various pumps, I don't know how old this person's pump is. Now, she says she is a type 1 diabetic, or type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is the less threatening mode, I think. I stand to be corrected if I'm off on that. So, which is not to say that it's not important. It is. May not be life-threatening, though, okay? May not be life-threatening. That's for a physician to say. But most of the pumps, just for example, one popular company is Medtronic, and I looked at those. Most of those seem to be internet-based. Now, by that, it appears that the device that collects the sensor data for the insulin and body readings, if you will, transmits that up to a cloud, sends that back to an app on your phone. Now, I have my wife and I have a scale that we bought that we weigh every morning. You know, people who at our age in the late 60s, we weigh to see how much that cup of ice cream last night or what have you cost us. And that's exactly the way that works. And many blood pressure devices and many of these devices that are out there, you can buy these. There's 100 and some odd insulin pump on Amazon. So I guess following up Caryn's comment, I'm not sure that who she's appealing to has standing to deal with it. And secondly, there's just almost no way that the ham in question so many miles away could have anything to do with this. There's a lot more logic to suggest that there's something else in her home, whether it's hacking or RFI of another nature, that's there. And finally, I don't know if this device operates under Part 15 or not, but call me crazy, but I remember some part of Part 15 that says if you operate such a device, you accept any and all interference. So we'll see where it goes, but it's got potential if the wrong decision's made to set a precedent, Martin.
Yeah, it certainly has, Frank. And well, seeing as this is a US story at the moment, and it could go worldwide. I mean, if one person mentions this, then there could be a precedent in other countries for people to argue this case. So I'm going to keep it in the States and give it to Bill next. Bill, what's your thoughts?
I agree with pretty much everything's been said, especially what Frank was just saying about it being a Part 15 device. Interestingly enough, the few pumps I looked up, a lot of them didn't have FCC type certification because they were imports from China. And I don't know how that works either, because that's asking for trouble if you don't get something that's type approved, especially for medical use. Likewise, the thing that the article doesn't say, which I'm very curious about. So this gentleman, David Burge, shut down his ham radio equipment and unplugged it. Well, then did her pump magically start working okay for the next 5 to 7 days? That's a piece of information that people aren't bringing up. And likewise, I mean, if this person's devices are that sensitive to RF interference, they should probably go live in the quiet zone, the national quiet zone between West Virginia and Virginia, because that's the only RF safe place left in the world. I mean, the whole thing, there's so many things in this article that's missing details that just, it's almost maddening, because, my first instinct was, oh, they plugged this thing into the internet and, every, port scan we get every 37 seconds is knocking it off the internet, making it go wonky. But no details whatsoever. So we're missing all the good, juicy information on this one.
We certainly are. And that's the other thing, is that the ham radio operator is usually to blame, or the public blame us instantly. Why? Because they can see our antennas outside and we're obvious, I think, and we just become the first target. Chris, what's your thoughts on this one?
Well, exactly that. I think we're the easy targets, aren't we? But I think everyone said it's highly unlikely that's the cause. I'm interested to see from Bill's comment. Is it now suddenly working fine now that he's turned his station off, or is it? Is he going to get a big apology when it continues to go wrong? Just on the point made by Frank, the story talks about actually replacing the device. So whether it's the same model or not, I don't know. We don't know what the manufacturer was. It may or may not have been Medtronic, but I mean, this is one of those situations where your National Society can come in very helping. But I don't know if he's spoken to the ARRL or a member of the ARRL, but this is one of those situations where being a member of a National Society can certainly help. And I don't know if they're assisting this ham or not, but that's certainly what you pay subscriptions for every so often to get that help when you need it. But it sounds like the poor old ham guy has been blamed, and I think everyone said, really it's unlikely to be his fault. I think we said on the pre-record chat, if it had have been that, it's likely the devices wouldn't have worked, rather than suddenly these have been a change of dose. That seems highly unlikely that a random RF from an amateur radio station would cause it to consistently give the person the wrong dose. That sounds much more likely to be something a bit more subtle. I think it's more likely that it would just stop working. if it was down to something we were doing. So, I think the poor old amateur radio guys got the blame. Hopefully this, and of course this is giving us a bad name, because people are going to see this story and think, oh, ham radio, that's bad, that's causing some really bad here. Of course, insulin is probably quite important to someone that's diabetic, and getting the right dose I would also think is incredibly important. So, this is potentially quite a serious story. So I'm hoping that once because I think everyone's saying is this is a bit of an emerging story. Hopefully, once this has been resolved, we'll an update to the story saying, well, actually, it was down to something completely different to the what's been reported today.
Yeah, I agree with all of you. The only problem we have in its 21st century life problem is that mentioning that somebody's insulin machine is not working is a big panic, bad news story, and everybody it shows concern. When it turns out to be something nothing to do with amateur radio, whatever, we will be very, very lucky to ever get a news story out saying, actually, we were wrong. Actually, it wasn't the ham radio operator. And if they do ever print it in newspapers, it's always like a headline on front page will be printed a retraction on page 38 about 3 weeks later. So, sorry if I'm being a bit cynical, guys, but I think that's the way it is.
Just a final point. This sort of device I would expect to be heavily regulated. It's a medical device. I think it's the FDA in the States that provide that regulation. So I kind of would expect them to be involved in this as well if there's a major problem with the pump, and to investigate and to also to get to the bottom of things. There is an article on the internet about a cybersecurity risk for a certain brand of insulin pump, and who knows if that's not the reason why this is an issue. But it's certainly an interesting story. I think it's one we need to keep an eye on and see how things develop. Like you say, it's likely it's going to feature on page 36 and be about one paragraph. But we should keep an eye on this one. I think it'd be interesting to see what happens.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's move to the next one. Our next news story. Ham saves a long-distance radio friend purely by accident, and this is another one of Caryn gave us. So thank you for that. Basically, not really ham radio, but it did save one of us, and saving one of us is important, I would suggest, Caryn.
Well, I love this story. I love this story because we always say when all else fails, ham radio. And in this case, ham radio was involved in that it was the reason these two guys were friends to begin with. So you can say if it weren't for ham radio, the fellow who saved the gentleman who had the stroke would never have known him and never been there to save him. But as a sequence of events unfolded, this gentleman, I believe was in Oregon, suffered a stroke. He was rapidly losing his ability to communicate and grabbed for his cell phone, which is a radio. It's just not a ham radio. And he thought he was calling his sister, but he accidentally, the buttons he pushed, called his friend in California. And he could not communicate well, but the friend recognized his voice immediately and could tell he was in distress. The friend's wife, who is a retired nurse, recognized the speech patterns and the symptoms immediately, and they were able to dial the emergency number, which transferred to emergency response in Oregon, and they got someone there in time to the fellow's house and got him transported and had him hospitalized and treated. And the emergency technicians did say to the friend later, had they not acted as quickly as they did, this gentleman really would have died. So the bottom line here is our radios save people all the time, certainly in natural disasters and other circumstances, lost people, tragedies. But hams can also save hams even without radio. I think it's one of the nice things about ham radio friendships. They really do go the distance, and they make a big difference. So this is clearly one of my favorite stories from a couple of the favorites in my small pool of top stories.
Yeah, I agree with you, Caryn. And the most important thing when somebody has a stroke, the quicker they get medication, the more likely they are to survive, and to survive without too much damage. The longer they leave it's left, the less chance the person has of recovery. Chris, what's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think it's a great story, and thanks, Caryn, for bringing this one up. It's great that the guy has thankfully got the help that he needed, and it's also great that he's made contact with a long lost friend. So I think it's a fantastic story, and what can you say? It's yet another thumbs up for amateur radio.
Certainly is. Bill, you got thoughts on this one?
No other thoughts other than just to guide everyone that, hey, make some connections with folks, just so that you have some personal connections with people in case they get into trouble like this.
Yeah, I agree with you, Bill. And that's one of the big things. In amateur radio, we do have a big social list. So we're probably better off because we will have lots of numbers in our phones, because we obviously communicate in other ways other than ham radio with our friends as well. Frank, what's your thoughts?
In agreement with everything. I think Caryn's comment about the networks is important, and when you think about the age distribution, particularly in the U.S., I'm assuming that may generalize to the U.K. and to Europe as well, but I don't know that. You've got an aging population, and some 25 years ago, I published a scientific paper on who do people turn to for help in a lot of ways. And as one ages, one turns to friends more than family, unlike what you tend to see on television and commonly believe. So this network, this social network piece that Caryn and others, Chris and Bill, have said, becomes even more important as one ages. And so that's one of the things that ham radio operators who are engaged with others, not all are, but there's the opportunity to be engaged with others, and not just in clubs, but on the air and through other venues, can literally be life-saving.
Certainly can, Frank. Certainly can. So good story, that one. Good story. Moving on, this one is radio-related. A contact of over 5,000 kilometers on 144 megs during an opening. Now, suddenly we seem to be having massive distance movements on VHF. Years ago they go, it's line of sight. Well, I know there are other propagation things, but come on, 500 kilometers. That sounds brilliant, Bill. What do you think?
Oh, I was really excited about this. Yeah, they did some transatlantic openings on 2 meters. 2 meters! Transatlantic. Yes, they were using FT8. Yes, that probably helped. But I know they were trying JT65 years ago with the 45-second transmit cycle slices. And I think that was just a little too long for some of these openings. But it's like the Canary Islands to the Caribbean. It just seems, it seems impossible, to be honest. And here they are doing it again, and it's not just one station. EA8CXN is definitely the one that's heard the most on the reverse beacon network. But there's like 5 or 6 now. I think I actually worked EA8TX on HF, but because that call sounds familiar. But anyway, there's like 5 or 6 of them on the Canary Islands that are doing a lot of 2 meter FT8 now, and they're finding these amazing openings. So it just proves yet again that we really don't understand all this propagation stuff as much as we think we do.
Yeah, you're dead right. We certainly don't. And that's what makes our hobby so interesting, that I often describe it to the general public as electronic fishing. We don't know what we're going to get when we set up. We could sit there all day and get nothing, or we could have a pile up. We just don't know. And this is half the fun of the hobby. Frank, what's your thoughts?
Well, I agree with Bill that it's a Forrest Gump. It's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. But let me point out a couple of things that I see in this piece. I've been using my whisper beacon to test some antennas that I put up in my attic. So I have it up on a big monitor, and I'm looking at it. I'm actually analyzing some data on it. But I don't have it for 2 meters, but I'll look at the big spread of connections at 6, 10, 2, and 70 SIMs particularly. And I think that we now have enough beacons with this that while we can't fish day and night all the time, we do have an indicator when openings occur, so it's more efficient for when we try to make contacts. So to some degree, it's a little bit like that thing about, if a tree falls in the forest and there's nobody there to hear it, we may have more openings, but we may have more discovered openings because of the use of beacons like Whisper. And on top of that, Echo India 7 Golf Lima, he has sort of made this a full-time observation deck, which has been a blessing to us all because he's tracking these things. And this is maybe third story, fourth story, maybe over the past several months. So give a small boy a hammer, everything's a nail, and bless him for monitoring this because he is really showing us where a lot of fantastic openings are.
Yeah, certainly, Frank. And it's interesting times at the moment. Chris, your thoughts on this one?
Well, yeah, absolutely. So, as Frank would say, we've seen John EI7GL many times now with his phenomenal reports around openings on the higher frequencies. So, yeah, I mean, phenomenal. And as Frank was saying, if you ain't trying, you don't know. So it may be that this happens quite a lot, but no one's actually trying to operate on that particular band over that sort of distance. We wouldn't necessarily know. So, no, it's fantastic though. That we're told the theory is that this is line of sight, and obviously we know there are certain conditions where you can get some quite good distances on certain frequencies. But this is still a phenomenal 5,000 kilometers on 2 meters is still a phenomenal achievement, even if it's on FC8. It's very. It's cool. We've got people that are trying these things out and seeing if it works.
Certainly is. Well, let's say that's good. Caryn, are you a 2 meter operator, and had you spotted this one?
Well, I am. The most luck I have ever had with Tropo is definitely not impressive, but I will share it because it was accidental and it was delightful. Which was from my home in Suffolk County, New York, which is east of New York City by about an hour and a half. I was hooking up my new Kenwood dual bander and got on 2 meters and heard a call sign, and it turns out it was from a station way, way up on the Hudson River, which is in New York State, but nowhere near me. Now, that's not quite the Canary Islands or the Caribbean. But for me, it was, oh my God, I couldn't chase it because I had just hooked the radio up and I did not have any tones programmed in yet. So I just listened, but I was just astonished that I could get that far on 2 meters. And I do have to say, I love Echo India 7 Golf Lima. I love the blog because we do read some incredible record-setting contacts on there. We hear a lot about that, and hey, there are a lot of us on HF who would consider a contact between the Canary Islands and the Caribbean terrific on 20 or 40. To do it on 2 meters really, I think, blows some of us out of the water. So. Maybe one day, but I like the idea of, trying to pin down the predictability of these openings a little bit more. That would certainly make it less accidental, would make it, we could plan for it a little better and maybe accomplish a few more of these in a predictable way.
Yeah, I think you're right. But it is nice when you come across a really exciting one. Right, moving to the next news story, and it looks like for the first time in a long time, I might actually be in luck because the FCC application fees for upgrading your license. Look, so they ain't going in till 2022, and mine's due for renewal in October. So looks like I might be a winner. Frank, what's your thoughts?
A couple of things. There's been a whole lot of reaction by the ham radio community with some efforts to unravel this thing about, we're going to charge fees because Congress said we had to. Having worked in federal government at the GS-15 level, I've got at least some passing understanding of federal agencies make changes very slowly, particularly when it involves money. So the steps that the FCC goes through become a mini splendored thing. So, Martin, I'd wait until I got a bill before I got my money out. So just kind of wait and see.
Right. All right, Frank. No problems. Well, Dan will get my bill, I'm sure, but I'll have to pay it, obviously.
He'll pay that for you. I'm sure Dan will. You can count on Dan.
If he can, I'll talk to Dan and maybe he'll renew it for me and I'll send him the cash. Not a problem. But, yeah. Chris, you've got a US license. You're rubbing on it.
Mine expires in November, so mine's also this year. And mine's also at Dan's address. I don't think nowadays you get anything through the post. I think there was a change a few years ago. Everything's online now, so I think you'll get an email to say it's up for renewal.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, okay, we come to get it. It's looked like we're going to get away with it this time, probably not in another 10 years' time. We'll see what happens. I think, thinking back to when I got mine's a vanity call sign, got it in 2011. And, in fact, it's actually my birthday, 2011, interestingly. It came through. I think we had to pay a small fee then, actually, to get the vanity call. I think the actual base license was free, but the vanity call sign you have to pay a small fee for. So this time we're going to renew it. I think they limited that fee a few years ago. I seem to recall reporting on that. And it looks like that fee's, everyone's now going to get the fee back next year. So, hey, it changes. It probably change again next time we come to renew it, Martin. So we'll just have to wait and see. But I assume it'll be another 10 years we get it for free, and then it'll be whatever happens next time.
Certainly. And I shall be not quite as old as the Rolling Stones drummer that unfortunately passed away yesterday. But, yeah, I'll be getting there, and we'll see how that goes.
Well, I have my checkbook ready. I have 2 years until I'm going to be writing the check for my license to be renewed. I hope by then they don't double the fee. You never know. If 35 might start looking like a bargain in another year or two. How do I feel about it? Well, I can understand people protesting. I can understand how something that was free is now resented because it's no longer free. I don't know that I completely believe the reason behind it, the administrative costs, because I believe automation was supposed to take care of the expenses, not add to them. But I am also a realist, Martin. I know in this life there's no free ride for anybody. And just as our postal rates are going up, just as everything else is going up, including probably our blood pressure, this was only a matter of time. I think the delay until next year is basically just a bookkeeping thing. It will go forward. We will all pay. And I think the people who genuinely do have financial hardship that is posed by the $35, and I do believe there would be folks who truly are on that tight a budget. I would hope that there might be ham radio clubs that could even help by setting up funds, or there might be people who would accept donations for something like that. I don't think it's the end of the world. I don't think it's wonderful, but as I say, it was bound to happen sooner or later.
Well, just say there's an old saying: there's no such thing as a free lunch, but we'll have to see. Bill, what's your thoughts on this one?
A lot to unpack here. Yeah, I lit a candle last night for Charlie Watts. Very sad. Frank, you were a GS15 man?
Yeah, you know what that is?
Oh yeah, you're cooler than I thought. You're making
That's
almost
the
decent money.
For our listeners, that's the highest level without a presidential appointment, or which is through the thing. So there you go.
Yeah, you were making good money. Well, depends what year it was, but recently you'd be making good money. And one last thing is, in the predecessor to the ULS, they had a process when you renewed or made a modification to your license in the FCC systems that you had to print out a page, and it told you who to make the check out to, the United States Treasury, and what numbers to put on it and that kind of stuff. That's how they used to have to do it. Pretty sure if they're delaying this long, these systems that they're working on for the ULS is actually a massive system. So it takes a lot of work to make software changes. So I'm assuming that they're also not just turning that old process on where you can mail a check in. I'm willing to bet they're doing some sort of e-commerce thing, so they can process payment cards or bank transfers or that kind of stuff. So hopefully when they get this done here next year, the folks that do have to start paying for their license, they'll make it as easy as possible to get that done and as quick as possible. Because that's the other thing, your application used to hang up until basically the check cleared. So you would apply, for a renewal on like a Tuesday, and then 6 or 8 weeks later, after they got notice that the Treasury part was done, then they released it and finalized it and mailed you your new license. So I'm hoping they'll improve that process as well. It is what it is, and that's the thing that folks need to keep in mind is it's not. It is a lot, but it isn't a lot, and at the same time, when you look at the fees they charge the commercial guys, it feels like a severe value, because just doing a modification to a commercial TV station license, they're dropping thousands of dollars just to fill out paperwork. It's pretty onerous in some respects.
Certainly is. But guys, it's coming. I still think it's a priority thing. If amateur radio is that important to you, you'll find your $35 personally. But I know people will disagree with me. But that's what makes the world go round, and that's good. Right. Let's start with our last news story here. And a sailing vessel with ham radio history marks 100 years. So this must have been one of the very first sailing vessels to have ham radio on it. It looks like it did some Arctic exploring. So I think this is quite a good one. Chris, you haven't gone first on any of these. What do you think?
Oh, I'll go first, then. That's fine. Yeah, I mean, it's a great story. I was a little bit surprised. It talks about ham radio being the sort of primary way of communicating. I didn't think that was... Maybe that was allowed then. Obviously, nowadays, I think that would probably be classed as kind of commercial operation. But no, it's a great story, and yeah, I mean, there's not much else to say. I mean, it's great that it's still being used, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, well, these training ships are beautiful, and if it's been looked after, as I'm guessing this one will have been, that'll be good. Caryn, what's your thoughts on this one?
This ship came to our attention back when it was still being refurbished. This was about 4 or 5 years ago, and it was a big project to get this thing ready for prime time. And it was a labor of love for all of the people to restore it to its glory. What is really neat about this is, when I first learned of it, I said, hey, these guys went on de-expedition. It wasn't Bouvet, it wasn't Navassa. They went to the Arctic, and they had ham radio on board the vessel. This is a much, much loved ship, and it's fabulous that, being the official vessel of the state of Maine, it is really being celebrated for the role it played. What I was surprised to learn about this is that Hiram Percy Maxim, and he was one of the benefactors, and he actually recruited an operator to accompany the expedition and to operate the radio. It was, I believe, a guy's name was Donald Mix. Call sign then was 1TS. He was a fellow from Connecticut. We love history. Find me a ham radio operator who does not love history. We celebrate everything. If it happened in history, we celebrate it. We find a special event station. We take on a project, and I think it's incredible that we can look back on our history and find all the richness there is to make it a part of what we do as hams today. So I'm excited about this one. And 100 years. We should, you know what? We should all look so good when we're 100 years old. I think we'd all like to be as refurbished as this schooner.
Caryn, I've got to tell you, when Frank and me are 100 years old, Colin's going to have even more trouble with us keeping us under control at Dayton. That's
we
right.
May actually be wearing diapers there, my friend.
Yeah.
Depends.
It depends. That may be the brand.
It depends.
But yeah. Frank, do you want to go next on this one?
Sure, but I will say, in full disclosure, the only schooner I've ever come in contact with has been in a bar full of beer. But the Bowden is all that Caryn, I think, has said. Let me wax historically for just a moment. The expedition in 1923 and then the follow-on in 25, remember when hams got banished to the so-called 200 meters and down was because the U.S. Navy wanted us to get off their yard frequency-wise. So keep that in mind. So ham radio was not an illogical choice because we had different frequencies by the 20s that we could operate on. And so if you were going out risking life and limb and that sort of thing, it was a very wise choice. And thankfully, Maxim was not inventing mufflers or silencers all the time, and got folks involved with that. So I think it's a beautiful history story, and I'm just delighted. These old ships are works of art.
They certainly are, and yeah, well, every now and again they turn up in London and they tie up down by Tower Bridge, and they're absolutely beautiful works of art. So I agree with you. Bill, what's your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think this thing's very fascinating from the 100 years ago. It kind of sounded like this sort of like precursor to the expeditions, because the station would transmit press releases and listing of stations worked and heard, and they were using medium wave, 185, 220, and 300 meter bands. And then, like Frank started to talk about, the 1925 expedition to the North Pole did more with radio, but it utilized short waves, and it kind of proved the superiority of the short waves over the long waves over polar paths. And today, polar paths are kind of rough. I can't imagine what they were like with long waves. They're probably not possible at all. So it's an interesting history and puts a lot of stuff in context in my mind, at least on how we got here from there, at least on the band allocations.
Yeah, certainly does, Bill. Certainly does. And great news story on that one. I'd like to end up with a nice, warm-feeling news story, and I think that one achieved it. Right, that's the end of our news stories. We're going to whip around the table quick and find out what the guys have been up to. I'm going to start with Bill because I know he's got a hard stop, and if you're not with us at the end, Bill, we'll say 73's for you. So, Bill, what have you been up to since you last did a podcast with us?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's kid football season, American football, not proper football. So it's it's busy, busy all the time. I did get a chance to, after the 13 Colonies event, work some POTA stations on the POTA summer activity weekend. I picked up like a dozen or so stations. I was actually using sideband for most of them. That's been a long time since I plugged a microphone in. Then we had a couple days at the end of July and the middle of August where I had good FT8 runs. I actually ended up on the 15th on 30 meters chasing a DX station, and once I worked the DX station, I had a bunch of people calling me. So I ended up doing what I never do on FT8, which is start calling CQ, and I ended up working 25 stations in about 45 minutes. A lot of people apparently wanted Pennsylvania on 30 meters or something. And then last weekend was the SARC Worldwide RIDI contest, so I worked a bunch of stations Saturday evening on that, which leads me to my next thing I want to remind folks about. September 4th and 5th is the next big contest, the real big one, the one for the year. That's right, kids. It's the Portable Operations Challenge. Don't forget, September 4th.
Will you take the challenge?
Yes. Are you man or lady enough to take the challenge? And,
are you feeding the chickens?
and actually, Frank, speaking of that, after you guys tweak the scores, I may actually work from the shack now. I may not actually go out in the field just because I want to be a big signal.
Yeah.
So I'm still running numbers and making plans, but that's, that'll be the weekend after this episode comes out. So go to foxmikehotel.com and check out the Portable Operators Challenge. And please participate. I need stations to work. CQ contest. And that's all I got, Martin.
Yeah, no problems, Bill. Well, that should be fun. I know in the UK it's the same weekend as SSB Field Day. So you may get quite a few extra stations there. Chris, what are you up to?
Well, not a huge amount of radio. I've been, as I mentioned at the start of the podcast, I've been on holiday on my camper van for a little while. So I really do need to get around to putting the radio into the camper van, although I'm not sure my girlfriend would be that happy for me to be operating while driving. But that's one thing on my list of things to do, many things to do. But no, I've not been doing a huge amount of operating. A quick shout out, though, to Kev and Lauren Richardson, who have just finished today their Mega Cycle Day expedition. We've had them both on the podcast before, and they've been cycling from Land's End to John O'Groats, which, if you're not familiar with that, UK geography is pretty much the furthest you can travel in the UK. It's right from the very southern point to the very northern point. So they've cycled that with radio gear, etc. as well, and they set off on the 30th of July and they've arrived today. So that gives you an idea of how far it is. So congratulations, they have finally got there. It says here it was 1,640 kilometres. So that's quite a lot of cycling to do. And they've had a few stops on the way, and I know they're operating at the weekend. The lighthouse is on the air for a lighthouse up in Scotland. So they're not cycling every day, but I'm assuming that they've got lots of tales to tell. We talked at the club, they did a talk for us before they set off. So it'd be great to catch up with them and see how they got on. But no, unfortunately for me, Martin, not a huge amount of radio, I'm afraid.
Well, I did see you pop up a couple of times on the talk group, although I wasn't around, so I saw you after the event. But I saw you popped up a couple of times on the talk group.
I did take my handheld with me actually in the camper van. So I did actually try to touch base on the ICQ podcast digital channel or digital talk group. Unfortunately, there's nobody around to talk to me. So, but there you go. You don't always get to talk to somebody, do you?
That's true. Right, Caryn, not putting you on the spot here. What we normally do is just let people know what we kind of been up to radio-wise recently. So if you'd like to have a go.
Oh, absolutely. We've had a busy season here. This little shack has been jumping, all 100 watts of it. We're coming off a busy season of special events. I was able to activate 4. We had in the spring, of course, the KA6 LMS Last Man Standing special event. I activated 4, marking the end of a very, very popular American TV show that shed ham radio in a very, very good light, very positive light, and we gave our big thank you with that activation. segued immediately to 13 colonies, which every year I have failed to get a clean sweep. And I love the idea of the event. And I said, well, maybe what I will do this year is offer myself as an activator, and I can still be a part of it, even if I don't get a clean sweep. So the propagation gods smiled upon me. And not only did I activate for New York, and one of the activators, I did get my clean sweep, so I'm delighted with that. I moved from that immediately to a very unusual special event called the World's Largest Teapot. And that is an annual event in West Virginia, but this year went national for the very first time. There were operators in every region. So I was once again an activator for that, plus a bonus station. And I'm putting all people in the UK on notice. The World's Largest Teapot organizers are looking to go international next year, since this is celebrating a large teapot that is a tourist attraction in West Virginia. The Land of Tea is being invited to participate, so they are wanting a station, at least one or two, maybe three in the UK, to activate as a bonus station. So that said, I'm segueing immediately. Frank, you'll love to hear this. I am going to be in the Portable Op Challenge. I will have the Fox Mike Hotel event. It's on my calendar. I've already got my logging software set up and really looking forward to it. I'm going to dial down my 100 watts, maybe to 50 or 25, and I'm going to give it a go. I should say I am not a contester. I really am not a fan of contests, but I'm thinking of this as an operating activity and certainly a way to stretch my low power station to its limits and have a good time. So looking forward to it. It's been a good year, it really has. So that's what's going on in my shack.
Well, that sounds good to me, Caryn. And you've been a busy boy, busy girl, rather. Sorry, I'm so used to dealing with the guys.
That's okay.
Yeah, but that's all good. So, Frank, what have you been up to? Are we in trouble?
Well, yeah, I've been in trouble, but been busy as well. Like you, Martin, I have a Mrs. H, so I do stay busy there. As Bill and Caryn really alluded to, been as the chair of the steering committee, been trying to help glide the plane into September 4th and 5th. Now, Bill said y'all changed the metrics a bit this year. Let me just say, Bill is an instrumental part of that steering committee. In fact, Bill has taken the lead on getting N1MM Plus in the fold, and our guy Al with the N1MM Plus dev team, it works hand in glove with us. And so Bill's been a big part of that. Ed, DD5LP, not here today, is another one who is a big part of that, as well as a cast of both ardent portable operators and true blue contesters. That's been sort of a cultural blending that I've tried to do here. And we're excited, delighted, Caryn, that you're going to be there. Two things on that. My team, I have a 4-person team, and we operate all modes. We tried with 100 watts last year using, perhaps laughingly so, standard contest strategies and got our behinds kicked. We finished 7th. One of the other members of the ICQ podcast, Edmund Spicer, in his first contest of any kind, he says, finished, I think, 3rd worldwide. So the winner operated QRP mostly. He bumped up to 40 watts, but he used an Invis antenna. The distance champion with the single longest kilometers per watt operated with a KX2 QRP sitting on the shoals of the Atlantic Ocean and worked his distance contact back over ground, back to the west, not across the pond. So we hope that it's a level playing field, or a more level playing field, where you don't have to see yourself as a big contester or not. But like Bill said, everybody can win. So we've been looking at my whisper beacon, and Australia, New Zealand, and that part of the world has been really getting it before daybreak. So we may have someone up in Adam in that early time period for us. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, Martin, I've been doing a good bit of that. Been trying to finish an automatic bandpass filter that I bought from a small Aussie company, VK Amps, in time for the POC. It was already assembled, but I'm putting it in a case and putting a few ferrites on the leads and putting a thermo coupler there so it can drive some fans to bring some air over the toroids as that may be the case, and all that kind of stuff. So the other thing I've gotten into a little bit on the POTA end, Bill mentioned that. Another member of the steering committee, Thomas Witherspoon, is a very ardent POTA activator. We know that Ed is an ardent SOTA activator. But I got to looking at the POTA database and realized that there were just not many parks on the list around me. Now, with my 30-year career in dealing with GIS, heck, I've got all the parks in the country, both current and historical, in my multi-terabyte database. But I contacted Jason, who owns the company, as it were, and Jason doesn't want any more parks. So he wants to chase DX. And I think he's probably a little frustrated because their system in POTA is not automated with log processing like it is in SOTA. So I think as it would be the case, if that were more automated, Jason and his team wouldn't be quite as overburdened as the case. But I may get into some POTA activation. Looks like it'll be a fun deal, and look forward to doing that when it cools off. Final thing I've been doing, as many of the listeners know, and as fellows and ladies here on the podcast know, I live in an HOA. In my attic, which I had a large one built, has foil back radiator barriers on the inside of the attic. Ooh, everyone says, if you read EHAM, nothing will get out. It's a Faraday cage. Well, you know me, when someone says everybody goes left, I start looking to see who's coming right. So I've been collecting whisper spot data from antennas in my attic. I have one semi-horizontal loop that is outside of that Faraday cage, if you will. It's 1 inch under the shingles, but on the top side of the plywood. So I've been collecting data using a pre-test, post-test design. Day one of the loop, day two, one of my antennas in the attic behind the foil back radiator barrier, and then the next one on the loop again. I've been rotating that for about 10 days, and I just finished the data collection. And if it's a Faraday cage, nothing would get out. Well, we can squash that. I get out all over the world with Whisper on any of the antennas. But if it's an attenuator, then those antennas behind that foil should have a lower median signal to noise ratio as compared to the loop. And that's one of three elements of an experiment that I'm doing right now. I've been consulting with Bob Whitty, formerly of Hewlett-Packard and test instrument fame, K0NR, and a big SOTA operator himself on some of this. So got some data in my hands, going to begin to look at it. I'll then build a Faraday cage using the same material and put a radio in it and use a spectrum analyzer outside of it and actually measure the attenuation for each band as a third part of this experiment. So busy bee, Martin, trying to stay out of trouble.
Yeah, interesting, Frank. And yeah, there's some strange things about RF. I mean, you know, you wouldn't believe if you put your mobile phone in a tin box and you called it on another mobile phone, it shouldn't ring because it should be totally shielded.
Mm-hmm.
But quite often they do ring. I don't understand why. I do wonder whether it might be something to do with the size of the box, just so happens to be kind of acting as an antenna on that frequency or something. People would say, oh, it's just around the edge where the box is pushed down, the lid's pushed on. But yeah, I've seen it. Carol got a key box, you know, one of these things to keep keys in. to stop people nicking your car. And put a mobile phone in it, and you can ring my mobile phone, and it'll answer. You can hear it ringing in the box. So, yeah, there's some interesting ones, Frank, and, you can never say never. Anyway, what have I been up to quickly? Well, the feature is a grand field day. Yeah, we had a grand day out, Mrs. B and I. Yeah, it was a good day out, and thoroughly enjoyed that. You'll hear that one on the feature. Built my battery box, my new battery box, over the last few weeks. It's about 99% finished. A couple of little bits, and then it's done. Quite pleased with that. I now have been driving Carol's car, or Carol's old car now, for about 8 months, having written mine off back at Christmas time. And I have never liked her Bluetooth device. It was a Parrot that was fitted, and it was never worked well. It was horrible. The way it was fitted, the display didn't turn right so you could see it particularly well while you were driving. It was horrible. So the other week I went, that's it, that's coming out. And I was out the front of the house, taking it out the car. And yeah, you had to take all the dashboard out. Now, I've got to say, Google was my best friend that day, because there's only one bolt that holds the part of the dashboard I need to get out. But I'd have never worked out which one it was from looking at it. And once saw how to do it, got it out, removed that. While I got all the dashboard off, I thought, well, I'm going to fit my my Fusion radio in the car at some point in time. It had an old ICOM in there that I was using analog, but I wanted to put my Fusion radio in, so I run the head unit in, and I've wired it all in, and that now works. Apart from I've got no microphone on the radio, which is pretty pointless. It's working as a receiver, but the head unit's wired all up through the dashboard and works quite nicely. It's just the way I do my hands-free, and I want my mic connected. It's going to take a little bit of time, and I haven't had the time to do it because I was out this weekend. What else? So that was that. I actually went DMR mobile the other week, and I spoke to Phil in Western Australia, all the way from South London right down to the Sussex border for the UK people. About 30 miles. We were chatting away. I know it was a cell phone call because I was talking via a hotspot, but then went to my internet dongle that went off on the cell network. But we had quite a good conversation, Bluetooth to the radio, lots of technology, all seemed to work. So that was good. 9480, as Chris said, our talk group, and its variants for DMR and, its variants for Fusion and D-Star. Yeah, it gets busy times and it gets not so busy times. If you just blip it, you may not come up on the mode somebody's on. You need to put in at least a 3-second transmission for it to guarantee to come up in all the three modes. And lastly, put a call out. If I don't hear you, I might not spot you blipped it. Put a call out. If you want to talk to somebody, put a call out. And if you hear somebody on there, they should be leaving a good gap between overs. If you hear somebody on there, join in. I am almost ashamed to say that Phil, VK6, ADF and I had a conversation about a week ago where we were putting the world to rights. And this was a mega rag chew. Frank, you'll be proud of me. This was a 3.5 hour conversation.
That was the podcast episode and a half.
It was. Yeah, Phil and I were talking about radio and different things of radio, and it was a time, quite a nice technical chat. And we were and then after that we got on to putting the world to rights and one thing and another. And Phil suddenly said, bearing in mind it was middle of the afternoon for me, Phil suddenly said, it's gone midnight here, I better go to bed. So that was a funny one. 13th of August was Colin's and my birthday, and I forgot about it, didn't I? So I wasn't in the doghouse, but I was working early shift and I had to leave for work at 5 a.m. Got home at 2 o'clock. And I said to Carol, I'm not going to do anything on my birthday till I get home from work. I'm not going to open cards because Carol likes to watch me open cards. And then what did I do? A couple of days prior, Martin Ruffo rang me up and he said, hey, can you help me go and fix XP on the roof of the hospital? And I went, yeah, I'll do it Friday afternoon for you. I'm finished work early Friday. I'll do it Friday afternoon. So I came home, ended up on the roof of the hospital. But we did actually get XP back on the air. So GB3 XP is back on the air. Basically what happened was that the electrical supply had been removed for too long for the backup battery to recover it. But we're back on air now. The electricians have been up and done some work and thing. However, we do suffer interference on GB3XP. We're pretty sure it's somebody local in the London area. In fact, we're 99.9% sure we know who it is. And I think very soon, if the guy doesn't stop, he will be having a visit from Ofcom because it can't go on. So you know who you are, sir, and I know you're a listener. If you want to do something positive for the hobby. Talk to me and I'll find you something positive to do. So that's pretty much what I've been up to. A fair amount, like all of you, but we've all had fun, I suggest. So, on that note, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for joining me tonight. I'd like to thank Mr. Chris Howard, M0TCH.
Yeah, thank you, Martin, and thank you, guys. It's been another fun episode. Thank you.
Yeah, great to have you, Chris. I'd like to thank Mr. Frank Howell, K4FMH.
Glad to be here, and thanks for having me back, Martin.
Yeah, cheers, Frank. I'm not sure if Bill's there, but if you're there, Bill, thank you. If you're not, we'll catch up with you soon. And last but not least, a big thanks to Caryn Eve Murray, KD2GUT, who joined us as a guest presenter on this episode. Thanks for joining us, Caryn.
It was great. It was a lot of fun. You guys are terrific company. Really enjoyed it. So thank you for having me.
No problems at all. And, you know, we're not maybe as regimented as others, and we are just a big family, really, but that's the way it is here. But thanks for joining us. Okay, guys, 73s, and we'll catch you all again soon. 73.
73.
73.
73.
Keep your amateur ham radio podcast advert free by donating less than a length of coax. Visit www.icqpodcast.com/donate now. For all the news, links and information, visit www.icqpodcast.com.
And now it's time to have a look at the news in brief for me, Colin M6BOY. Just a couple of news stories this week, where we start off first with those of you who love to work a satellite. Now, Rad FXSat-2, which is a small CubeSat that was deployed in a Virgin Orbit launch back in January, was deployed by the Vanderbilt University. Now, it had gone silent, but 6 months after it fell off the air, amateurs are now basically getting signals back again for it, so it's come back to life, which is much to the praise and hard work and success for the guys at the university and also their AMSAT partners. So if you do start to hear communications and response from Rad FXSat-2, it's not your ears deceiving yourself. It really is back up online and ready to work. So certainly keeping an eye out for now. So this was one of 10 CubeSats that were deployed back in January. And our last news story is congratulations to the Bonaire Amateur Radio Club that's been formed for 9 amateur radio operators that live permanently on the island and are active amateur radio operators. Apart from that, at least 6 PJ4 call signs were issued to amateur radios that live outside of Bonaire but have addresses on the island as well. So the club call sign to stand for is Papa Juliet 4 Bravo Alpha Romeo, and the club meets weekly at the Terra Cora Ranch from 6 p.m. local time until late at night, And to celebrate this, they'll be doing a special event on the weekend. We release weekend of the 27th to the 29th, so keep an eye out for that there. We're going to put a link to the club's webpage on the ICQ podcast webpage, so you can check out information from there. Well, everybody, we got our feature now coming out this episode, and pleased to announce that we've gone and done a field day, a rally, and we've got a report from the Grand Field Day. So as always, guys, hope you enjoy.
And now what you've all been waiting for, this episode's feature from the ICQ podcast. Tell you about something we did at the weekend. The ICQ podcast was invited to go along to a Grand Field Day. This happened on the 22nd of August 2020, and we had the invite. However, Martin and Chris were away on holiday. Edmund was playing houses. He was doing the Lighthouse on the Air weekend. And Leslie was working nights. So Carol and I decided to trundle off down to the Grand Field Day. Now, if you're in the UK, this takes place just off of Junction 10 on the M20, down in Ashford in Kent. It was scheduled to start at 10, finish at about 4 in the afternoon, and when you got there, there were about a dozen traders, which had set up stalls. There was a number of demonstrations going on of operating, and the idea was to show some of the new people who've just come to. So I found this was great fun. We had a wander around. We spoke to a number of people, and the feature is some of the people telling us what they're doing, what they've done, and explaining a bit more about this. Now, because we haven't done an event for years, or at least a couple of years, of a rally or a hamfest, I thought you guys might like to listen to this. Well, hi guys. I got a nice invite to go to a Grand Field Day. Andy invited me. We'll catch him in a second, but I'm with John, G0GCQ. Hi, John. You must be pleased with the way the event's going.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks very much. Glad you could come down. Yeah, it was really good. Very pleased. Quite a number of people here having the chance to natter, get together. Some are meeting others for the first time. They've contacted them during the lockdowns. Never met them before. So it's really great. So this is a chance to meet, to have a natter, swap ideas, to see some operating, to buy a bit of other people's junk, which is good. Yeah, we're having a fun time. It's really good. And it's free.
Yeah, you can't do better than that on an amateur radio event. I must admit, we got a few bits from the Silent Key sale we don't normally sell, but, you know, it's been quite pleasant. Quite pleasant people who come around today. So I must congratulate you on it.
Thank you very much. Well, it was conceived at the early part this year. We wanted to try and get people out to re-meet again, and we chose this date, 22nd of August, in order to be far enough into the future at the time. So we hoped that we would be able to legally meet outside, which obviously we can now. And it's been a fantastic opportunity. As I say, a lot of people that haven't met each other before, but some very new amateurs, some that have just returned. So the whole point about Ham Radio Network, which we may come on to a bit later, and this event is in order to support those newcomers as well.
That's good. That's good. Now, I do have Andy with me who's been saying, no. But Andy, you've arranged Hamzilla. Unfortunately, because of COVID, it got put back. What's the latest on that, and when is it like to happen?
I think now we're looking towards having it in early part of 2022. It's been quite difficult. We've retained all the trader bookings, retained all the ticket sales, which has shown that it is heavily supported by the radio amateur world. So I'm looking forward to next year. There's been a hell of a lot of interest with regards to additional traders. We may have to open up the third floor. So obviously it's quite a large exhibition hall. So we're looking towards having the third hall, which will be quite good. Yeah, it's going to be a busy time for us both, but I'm sure John and I can manage to pull that one off. But today it's been fantastic. I've met so many people that I've been speaking to throughout lockdown, and to actually see them come over today. I'm running a station today, and to see them all come over and catch up with them has been absolutely fantastic. And I'm pleased that you and Carol have attended as well. That makes a big difference. And it's always good to see the bright orange shirts.
Well, there's not too much sun about, but let's hope the bright orange shirts kind of compensate for it. Yeah. So that's good news. That's good news. And let me know when your next event, Hamzilla, the dates when you've finalised it. And you did ask us before, but if you'd like us to attend, we're more than willing to.
Naturally, yeah. I want to get an ICQ podcast there. It's quite good. Yeah, I want to get you there, cover the event, and it'll be another podcast to listen to in the car. I've got this habit now. I'm rewinding and going back over the old ones in the car, listening in the car. And anybody who's a passenger now, mainly my two teenagers, are saying, "Oh, Dad, not again." But yeah, it's quite good. You'll be surprised how many newly licensed are listening to ICQ podcasts. You'll be amazed, and they're learning about amateur radio. It's fantastic.
Well, the newly licensed is we're hoping, and as I say, that's good. But the more people that listen, the better. And thanks. And I suppose you could have brought your young children here to meet me, because that would have been punishment duty.
Yeah. I think trying to get them both here would have been mission impossible. But there you go.
There you go. John, you mentioned something very quickly in passing earlier in this interview about other things you were doing. Go on, clue us in now.
Okay, well, Andy and I set up a Facebook group, club really, if you like, which was Beyond Borders, open to anyone, called Ham Radio Network. And if you look that up on Facebook, there are 2 or 3 little questions to answer. But it's open to anyone that's interested in radios, new people, returnees and so on. And it's a self-help group. We do lots of talks. We've had people from Howell, from all over, absolutely all over. And we get many people from across the world tune in for our broadcasts as well that we do, our talks, not just from the UK. And it's really, very good. And we've got about nearly 300 members. And we got about 150 members in a week. I mean, it was incredible. So we obviously, our rationale is to be open and supportive and encouraging, and to give some examples by way of, and of course we've also got a YouTube channel, so the talks that we have, we video and we put on the YouTube channel, so just look for Ham Radio Network, and that's another way in which both Andy and I are trying to support the community and come out of a really difficult lockdown where people have been stuck indoors on their own, and we're just trying to make it fun, but we're doing well, thanks.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, I'm going to say something now, and it's not us muscling in on your show, but if you maybe want a talk, then either if I'm available or one of the guys are available, I know Frank's doing a number of talks on all sorts of things, which may be of interest to you.
Yes, don't worry. We'll tie you down before you leave. No, that'd be fantastic. And we're trying to do a varied thing as well from all over, and a lot of interest. And Bob Heil's coming back again in the autumn. He's going to talk about another issue, not rather than the history of Heil and why microphones are important. He's going to talk about something else. So yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of people wanting to come back from around as well to do another talk. So yeah, we'd love to add you to the list. That'd be fantastic.
Yeah. Well, I quite enjoyed. I know I'm name dropping, but I quite enjoyed talking to Bob Heil in Dayton a couple of years ago, and it was really nice because he handed his phone to one of his employees, said, "I'm going to talk to Martin." We walked down the end of his stand. He said, "Stand in front of this. People think I'm selling it to you. Now let's have a chat." I went about 15 minutes with Bob, and he's a lovely gentleman.
It certainly is. Very supportive of us as well, which is great. And not only that, before we actually started the proper talk, he was playing on his equivalent of a Wurlitzer organ. Yeah. And I never knew the history of how he started off actually in the theatre and playing the music. And he is absolutely amazing. So, yeah, there's another side of him as well, you know. I mean, it's very good. So there's a lot in this hobby that we enjoy. And the more we can spread the word and the love, I guess, the better. It's great.
Yeah, it certainly is. And So that's great. Right, well, I'm going to wander around and hassle some other people. Thanks very much for your time, John and Andy, and we'll keep in touch.
I certainly hope so. Take care.
Yeah, thanks very much. Cheers.
Cheers, guys. Okay, Andy's just brought me across the park here to a gentleman, and I'm going to ask him to introduce himself, but he says, on his lanyard, it says Dover Amateur Radio Club, and I know that's one of the better clubs in Kent. So, sir, tell us who you are, call sign, and how you know Andy.
Yes, I'm Peter Wetherell, and I have the call G3 MLO since 1958, so I suppose I qualify as an old-timer. But I started off in the hobby. Funny enough, what got me going, I worked for a company who were electrical contractors. They had a refrigeration division as well, which was quite a young trade in those days. So when I left school, I went as an apprentice and learnt the trade of refrigeration. But I had a liking for Radio Luxembourg, and I decided I would try and build myself a receiver just to receive Radio Luxembourg. And in the, I think it was Practical Wireless or whatever magazine it was at that time, I found there was the option of a one-valve kit or a two-valve kit. So I went round to the radio and television department in the company, and I asked a chap there what I should do, whether I was better off going for the one or the two-valve kit. And he said that basically, are you interested in radio? And I said, well, yes. I told him what I wanted to do. And he said, well, you don't live very far from me. Why don't you come up one evening? And he introduced me to amateur radio. I took one look at his station. He said, tune around on the receiver, which was a CR100. And the first station I heard was from Argentina. I nearly fell off the chair. Radio Luxembourg went completely out of my head, and I thought, this is the hobby for me. He went on to, I suppose, teach me everything I needed to know to get my amateur radio license. Took quite a while. In total, about 14 months, because in those days I needed to learn the Morse code as well. When I got through my exam, there were only 2 times in the year when you could set your exam. One was at the Canterbury Tech College. I missed the first one, but I went up to London, the post office in St Martin's Le Grand, and I sat my exam there and duly passed it, and I was issued with my call sign. And from then on, my hobby has been solely amateur radio. I think you can sum up amateur radio as being a hobby that will give you so many things. I enjoy the friendships that you make within the hobby. I've got friends in America, Australia, and New Zealand, and they come over and visit me and stay, and I go and stay with them. You know, you get to know their families, and you see their families grow up. They take an interest in what you're doing, and basically, that is the major side of the hobby for me. I'm a great rag chewer, but I also chase DX. Who doesn't? So that is also a major part of my interest in the hobby. I have a decent setup, fortunately, and good antennas and good equipment, so I can usually work the DX expeditions and work the DX, which I thoroughly enjoy.
Sounds extremely brilliant to me. And being a rag chewer rather than a contester, I'm not a contester either. I like a good rag chew. And so you look extremely young for having a license that long. I think Andy said you'd had a license 60 odd years. Is that correct?
Yes, 1958 I was licensed, and been a member of RSGB for over 50 years. Got the badge. But yeah, I mean, the whole thing I think about the hobby, and why I get on with Andy so well, and we do get on extremely well. He will do anything I want. If I phone him up, he's there for me, because at my age, I do need help from time to time. But also, he has benefited from the help I was given. I remember back to that, and I think of either G3JS the help I receive from him, and I try and pass that on to anybody in the club. So that is my mission in life, to build up the number of amateur radio operators that's available to keep the bands going, because you've got to be aware we are not, absolutely sure of certain bands. The 2 meters being one, it's an underused band. We need to keep an eye on things, and what has been happening lately should be a warning to us all, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I agree totally with you by showing enthusiasm and generally having a great rag tube with people. And like yourself, I've got friends around the world which I thoroughly enjoy chatting to and meeting up when I'm in their country. So it's a multitude of things in our hobby. There's something for everybody, but it does keep us young and active. And in fairness, sir, you do look a lot younger than you told me you are. So, but I think it's because we're using our brain, we're being active. I don't know whether you agree with that or not.
Oh yes, I'm very aware. I mean, I do operate CW quite a bit, but I also enjoy, the new types of modes. I do operate a bit of FD8, but I limit my operation on FD8 to 2 meters because I've got a decent 2 meter setup I built purely to do EME. It was one of the, things to do, if you like, on the bucket list, to work signals off the moon. And I did that, and I only gave it up because it is a very specialised method of communicating, and you tended to work the same people. I had a decent antenna set up, a homebrew solid state amplifier, which was one of the last big projects that I built. I'm an avid builder, also an avid antenna builder. So basically, those are all the aspects of the hobby that if you cannot find something in the hobby which doesn't interest you, then you're in the wrong hobby, basically.
You certainly are. Well, I'm sure, and I'm going to say this to you, you're an inspiration to all of us, and thank you very much for your time today. I appreciate that, and let's hope I can come and visit you many more years.
Well, that's very kind of you to say, and basically, if you get down my neck of the woods, I'm in QRZ.com, come and visit me, and I'll be pleased to at least offer you a cup of coffee and a piece of cake.
Well, thank you very much for that. And let's say, lovely to chat to you. You look after yourself. I'll leave you to carry on with what you're doing here at the rally. But
thanks. Thanks so much. Enjoyed it.
Well, I've just wandered across the field. There's a gentleman here, and I won't ask. Well, I'm not sure what motorcycle it is because I'm not a motorcyclist. But he's got antenna up in inverted V format, FT817 on the tank with a Morse key. Yep. And a shirt that says, "May the Morse be with you." So tell us who you are, sir, your call sign, and what you're up to today.
Yeah, sure. I'm Simon, G0CIQ. Had the licence since about 1985, but with a rather large gap. Came back to it and suddenly found you could buy all these things like 817s and lots of other lovely little rigs. I've been motorcycling for about 20 years. I thought, well, I can combine the two. The rig and I've got what you can't see, I've got a couple of poles. I've just got 20 metre dipole up. Quite often I'll just take an MFEB wire and an ATU, maybe CW, as it is on this occasion. I may do SSB. I'm thinking about data modes even at some point. The nice thing about it is with the motorbike, you can get, to some extent, sometimes you can probably park up places where it'd be dodgy in a car, sort of roadsides and things like that. And it's, it's just another element of fun. I mean, the only real problem with it, I guess, is if the weather's excessively inclement, you're really probably going to, probably knock it on the head and go down the pub, quite honestly. But, it works. I haven't had any contacts today because I've just been nattering too much, but it does work, and it gets out and I can make contacts.
and you've got a big smile on your face because you obviously enjoy it.
It's fun. Yeah, it is fun. I mean, I have actually just put I've actually got a mobile mount on the bike. That's actually to just put a little telescopic on, a little multi-band telescopic I've got just for sort of quick and dirty, 5 minutes at the side of the road kind of activations. I wouldn't advocate really operating mobile. I think it's too much of an arse. There's just too many things that can go wrong too quickly. I do sometimes operate from the car, but even then I like to keep it simple, whereas if you're just parked up by the side of the road or a campsite or something, it's fine. I just turn up somewhere and do it. I don't use the electrics of the vehicle, by the way. I've actually got a little it's an 817 that's got batteries in it, and I've also got a little 7 amp hour sealed lead acid battery I use. Again, I just don't really want to get stuck somewhere with a dead battery and having to push start with them and thing.
Yeah, I can understand that. I can understand that. Not being a motorcyclist, but up until Christmas, I had an automatic car, and I had a quick and dirty power connector for a radio if I wanted to operate for a few minutes. And I actually had a voltmeter, one of these electric voltmeters to warm me.
Yeah, just to tell you that, hang on a minute, you're going to... Yeah, of course, I suppose with an automatic, you can't even bump start it, can you? No. But, no, it's all good fun, isn't it?
Yep, certainly is. Simon, thanks for your time, and hopefully you'll be an inspiration for others to go motorcycle.
No, maybe. There's been one or two people who said they've got bikes, so, this morning have said they ride, so... And it's not difficult to do. All the gear fits. Some of these little compact poles, I've got a little Soda Beams Tactical Mini. It's actually about the same width as the top box, so I can just strap it to the seat. It won't go in the top box, but it's, again, what you don't want is anything so long that it's actually going to stick out the side and hit things as you go along. I mean, I've got a beam as well in a tube, and I actually just bungee that to the side of the thing vertically. But really anything much bigger than what I've got, I think is going to be a bit of a problem. But, it's okay as it is.
Certainly is. Well, listen, thanks very much for your time, Simon, and enjoy the rest of your time.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Right, as I'm wandering around the field here, I've come across what most people, or most fathers, would really enjoy. A father and son team, new to our hobby, and I'm told it wasn't the father who got them started. So I'm going to start with the young man here. Tell us your name, your call sign, and what attracted you to amateur radio.
I'm Henry James, M7HJR, and what attracted me to amateur radio was I've always been interested in PMR radios, the license-free radios. So searching online, I came across amateur radio, found a local club that took us in to do a test and passed in 2019.
Well, that's good. So you've been in about 2 years now.
Yeah, for about 2 years, doing all sorts of stuff, HF and digital hotspots and stuff like that.
You're getting into my world of the hotspot, but I'll tell you more about that later. But sounds like you're really enjoying yourself. You've got a setup here. Tell us what your setup is.
So I've got a Zygu G90 for HF and a long wire antenna from Soda Beams. And running it off a battery, it works well for what I do. Run it in the shack at home, but also go out portable. It's got a built-in antenna tuner. It's perfect for what I need. It works well for me.
And you also got a Morse key. You're a Morse person?
I'm not, no, but I want to learn. I did do a bit over lockdown, but been focusing mainly on the GCSEs. But yeah, wanting to learn. That's why it's on the table here.
Yeah, your education's important, and I'm not going to sound like your dad here, but your education is more important than the hobby. You can obviously do the hobby at a later date as well. Once you got your license, you're in. But yeah, you're talking to somebody who falls asleep when he tries to do more. So when you're ready.
Yeah, it take me a while, but finished GCSEs now, so on to college then play a bit more radio, learn the Morse.
That's good news. Now let's have a word with Dad. Dad, you're sitting there really smiling. Name and call sign, because I should have asked you your name. Sorry.
It's okay. My name's Solomon. I'm 2E0SRH. And as Emma James said, we decided that we wanted to get into amateur radio. Well, I think Emma James decided he wanted to get into amateur radio, probably from actually quite a young age. As I said, he had these walkie-talkies, as a lot of children do. But then he kept collecting them. We got up to 11, was it, PMRs? Something like that. Yeah, quite a number. And one day we discovered there was a local radio club, Padart, they're based in Peterborough, and they offered training courses, which we went on and passed our foundation together. And then we went back about 2 months later and did the intermediate. So, we enjoy it. I think Emma James has actually gone way higher and way further in the hobby than I've got to. I've lost, so far, a quarter of my office to Radio Shack Land. And I think if Henry James had his way, he'd eat more of my office away and develop it into a full shack. Maybe that day will come, who knows?
Why not? Well, the interesting thing about this hobby, and you're both new to the hobby, it's a great hobby, as you've already found out. But there are a lot of friendly people that will help you. I learned that very early on. And the comradeship from around the world. When you go around the world, let people know you're going. When you get a full license, obviously you'll be able to operate in various countries. But certainly let people know, because you may get taken under their wing and they may let you operate the club call sign.
I think that's what's great about coming to events like this event here today, is there's so many different people with so many different experiences and backgrounds. And even just setting up today, people were giving us advice, weren't they, and tips and ideas. We've Henry James will tell you how we ended up coming to hear of the event today. We're not from this area. We've visited and come here on a holiday to deliberately come here today, really. How did you find out about the event, Henry James?
So I found out about the event during lockdown. Amateur radio operator from America put on YouTube about a system called Ham Shack Hotline, which uses VoIP phones. So I set one of these up, then rang John G0's GCQ, who's running the event, and they've got we've got a little group of amateurs in Kent all using these. Why don't you join us? And that's just developed into nets on Saturdays, and obviously they've come up with this event, so I thought we'd come down here.
Yeah, sounds good. Now, guys, if you fancy playing VoIP, or VoIP, as other people would say. No. If you fancy doing that, or you fancy the digital modes, the ICQ podcast actually has an international Brandmeister talk group number of 9480. We also have linked in D-Star and Fusion, the AC Fusion. But if you haven't got either of those, and you've got an Android phone, there's an app called DroidStar, which will get you in. And if you haven't got any of that, there's also Brandmeister's Hoseline app, which will actually play out the audio. So
there's no excuse not to listen.
Well, not just us. I mean, we put the international talk group in so that people could talk to each other. Because, quite honestly, you go buy a digital radio, which one do you buy? Yeah, and then
good question. Which one do you buy? What's your experience, Emma James?
I've got, I use the hotspots. I've used DroidStar, also there's DudeStar on Windows. But I like using Fusion. I've got FT3 and FT1 on the little hotspot. Got a DMR radio. I'm not a DMR radio, but I'm not really a fan of that. I find the programming a bit confusing, but I think it's brilliant that you can talk, all over the world on just a handheld. I know the internet's in the way, but just the fact that you're talking to people, making contacts.
Well, if you've got a Yaesu Fusion radio, as you say you have, join me one day, or I'll listen out for you on 09480, which is the Fusion hotspot.
I will join in on the hotspot, the talk group.
Well, thanks for talking to me. Please enjoy the hobby for many more years.
Absolutely, will. Yes, thank you.
And we'll hopefully catch up with you at another event. Thank you.
Take care. Thank you very much. Thanks,
Thank you.
Well, I think you'll agree from what was said. This Grand Field Day was a great day out. Many thanks to John and Andy for arranging this. And Andy, if I've got it round the wrong way, if it should be Andy and John, then I apologise. But you both get on, and I'm sure you're not going to fight over it. Great day out. Please, guys, if you'd like to do this and you live in the UK, put it in your diary for next year. The event, the Grand Field Day, will take place on the 31st of July 2022. And, well, hopefully it won't put you off, but the ICQ podcasts have been invited and we're planning to attend this event next year. So look forward to seeing some of you that didn't make it this year due to worries of COVID and one thing and another. But this is an outside event and well worth a trip. I hope this was of interest.
The ICQ Amateur Ham Radio Podcast, serving the amateur ham radio community fortnightly since 2008.
Well, everyone, I really hope you enjoyed Martin's report from his field day rally there, the Grand Field Day. And isn't it great to hear hams getting back together again? And as I say, meeting up in the flesh. So, Dad, I'm sure you had a great day out there, and I say it must have been great to finally say hello in face to face with hams you haven't seen for a while.
Yeah, it certainly was, Colin. Catching up with old colleagues, meeting some new people, and generally seeing what was going on. And the gentleman I interviewed secondly is well in his 80s and absolutely sharp as a button. I wouldn't have put him much older than me, in fairness. So, yeah, great guy and great people all around there.
Fantastic. Wanted to say, Andy M0, India Romeo uniform, as I said, it was great for you guys to catch up and be there. So that was last weekend, that rally. So it was great for the guys there to invite us along to that rally. And you're hoping to do that one again next year, aren't you?
Yeah, certainly am, Colin. It's in my diary. And I spoke to Edmund yesterday afternoon. And he said, it's not Lighthouse weekend. I think I'll try and get along to this one. So, yeah, looks like we were looking to do it again next year.
Well, Dad, is there anything else we need to catch up on? How's the DMR project going along?
Yeah, DMR project is quite stable at the moment. In fairness, we haven't quite hit the end of the month before we're released. So, next episode, you'll have release figures, and I'll put them up on the web anyway by then. Of how many contacts we've had. I've tried to get around a bit more and be available at different times of the day. Last week I was on earlies in the morning and on at, let's say, 5 o'clock UK time, 4 o'clock UTC. There's often people around that time. Wasn't last week. This week I'm on lates as we go into the thing, so I should be around in the afternoon in the UK. And I did set up a mobile operation within the car, and yeah, I know it works because I had a long natter with Phil, Colin. So yeah, it's looking good. There are a few more countries I've added, so I'll do the statistics soon.
Oh, fantastic. Well, congratulations there on keeping that project going along nicely. Now, as always, it's our very kind donors that keep your show advert-free for you. And as I say, we would like to thank this episode the very kind support of Michael Casavant, November 1 X-Ray Romeo. And of course, he, along with our monthly and subscription donors, as they have kindly supported us and helped us pay away. As always, if you found value in the show and everything that we do, all you need to do is visit www.icqpodcast.com/donate. And as I think of a monetary value of the value you found for the show, select one of the options or take one of the free open options you can put in your own value and send it our way, and we'd be greatly appreciated. As always, we'd like to thank our very kind contributors to the News Roundtable. So this episode, we'd like to thank Chris, Mike 0, Tango Charlie Hotel, Frank, Kilo 4, Foxtrot Mike Hotel, Bill, Whiskey Charlie 3 Bravo, and Caryn Eve Murray, Kilo Delta 2, Golf Uniform Tango. So thanks a lot, guys, for joining us there on the News Roundtable. Right, well, I think that's about all our notices and thanks done there for this episode now. I think the only one left to do is to thank your able assistant for last weekend at the rally and to help you doing the feature, Mrs. B, and making her a lovely cup of tea and finding her a treat to go with it. And I know you've been to the shops this morning, so I'm sure you picked up something nice.
Your mum and I are going to have a nice cup of tea in a second. I'll also find her that chocolate biscuit, put her feet up for a while, and then I've got a few jobs to do after that. So all being all, good, and hopefully we might start working a few more of you on the talk group if I'm on at extra times. Or is it people don't want to talk to me, Colin? I don't know.
Oh, you're not that bad. No, you're not that bad. Well, guys, we're going to bid you 73s, and as always, we'll catch up again in a fortnight's time. 73s all.
Yeah, 73.